What's up, everyone? Alex here. Growing up is an inevitability of life. Through the years, we've met many wonderful people, some of whom have touched our lives forever. And through no fault of their own, some of these acquaintances may have moved far and away to fulfill their ambitions and take on new adventures. Such is the case for young Ryza Stout, known as Ryza to her friends, who's chosen to remain at her sleepy home in Kirkin Island, as she watched her friends move on to bigger and better things. Years later, after receiving a letter sent from the capital, she's decided to set off to find new meaning and new adventures, and it'll be a quest, unlike any she's ever had before. This review is made possible by viewers like you, so please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video. Atelier Ryza 2: Lost Legends and the Secret Fairy is a medieval fantasy RPG that features a heavy emphasis on crafting, developed by GUST and published by Koei Tecmo, who provided this review code shown running on the PS5. It is the sequel to the best-selling Atelier game of all time, casting you once again as the eponymous Ryza. 3 years after the events of the original game, Ryza receives a letter from her friend Tao, beckoning her to come visit the capital city of Ashram Bard and assist in uncovering the secrets of a long-lost civilization. Equipped with her knowledge of alchemy, Ryza sets forth on a brand new adventure in a vast new land, filled with new experiences, new alchemical recipes, and even new friendships. Venturing through Ryza's new environs wouldn't be as enjoyable without a battle system that rivals the previous game, and I'm happy to declare that Atelier Ryza 2 not only builds upon the strong foundations of the original, but also streamlines it completely, creating a faster-paced combat system that's more combo-centric in nature. Since Atelier Ryza 2 does not utilize a traditional MP system, skills utilize an action point pool that's shared across the entire party, which is earned every time a party member hits enemies with their regular attacks. Due to the real-time nature of the battle system, you can only control one party member at a time, with the rest of the party auto-attacking once their turn is up. In order to provide better control of your party members, the game utilizes a feature that allows you to order them to execute powerful attacks or buffs simply by using a skill. For example, if a party member asks you to use magic, executing a magical skill will order them to unleash either a devastating blow or cast a buff that can help your party, all outside of their turn. Outside of orders, utilizing skills in Atelier Ryza 2 has numerous other benefits. Not only can you use skills immediately after unleashing a series of physical attacks, but you can also chain skills one after the other, creating long combos that just weren't possible before. Using skills will also increase your progress towards the next tactics level, which further extends your physical attack combos and unlocks latent skill powers that'll quickly turn the tide of battle. More importantly, executing skills will now grant you core charges, an MP-like resource that you can spend to use items without consuming them. This one small change highlights the importance of items in Atelier Ryza 2, and much has changed with how you're able to use them. As you'd expect, using items during combat will pause everything, allowing you to take your time when selecting what items you want to use. You can use as many items as you want, provided that you have the necessary items and core charges. In clutch situations when you might need to heal someone or deal some extra damage at a powerful foe, you can spend 10 AP to execute quick items out of turn, which will let you use items immediately. Finally, any leftover core charges will be added to a separate pool, allowing you to use restorative items while out on the field. But that's not all. Battles now occur across a circular arena, complete with a mini-map that helps you quickly identify what your party members are attacking. And once more characters join your group, you'll also be able to assign a support character that you can tag in to further extend your combos. And regardless of who is in your active party, everyone in your group earns the same amount of experience, alleviating the need to swap out members just to even out the experience gained. Lastly, Atelier Ryza 2 introduces timed guards, which will grant you additional AP when timed properly. The timing of these guards are longer than what you'd expect, and you can sometimes hold down the guard button a good bit of time ahead of the attack and still get the bonus. What this all amounts to is a battle system that still manages to retain the core strategies you've employed in the previous game, while, at the same time, speeding up the pace of battles in such a way that it feels like a natural progression for the series. For newcomers, this new combo-based system allows you to freely experiment with different combinations without ever needing to memorize long combo strings, offering a satisfying and intuitive gameplay experience that is at the heart of the series' combat. Admittedly, it might take a little bit more time to learn how Atelier Ryza 2's combat works, but much like its predecessor, once you've gotten several battles under your belt, you'll notice that you'll be conditioned to make the right choices in battle. And while the game's difficulty stays true to the series' legacy by keeping it fairly easygoing, experimenting with the game's combos and optimizing them becomes a highly addicting endeavor that you'll find yourself wanting to run into combat much more often than you normally would. At the end of the day, however, Atelier Ryza 2 is all about alchemy, and with it comes a major change in the series: the complete removal of alchemy levels. Instead, Atelier Ryza 2 introduces the Alchemy skill tree, a node-based upgrade system that lets you unlock upgrades on a board, giving you the freedom to pick and choose whatever you want to learn. It's here that you'll not only find recipes for various materials you'll use when synthesizing weapons, armor, and the like, but also important gathering tools and alchemical power-ups. Some of these power-ups can increase the amount of materials you can use during synthesis, while others can increase the maximum quality of the items you make. You'll be spending a brand new currency called skill points to unlock these upgrades, and you'll be able to earn them simply by making items or solving mysteries, which I'll get to later. Giving you control of what upgrades and recipes you'd like to learn is an empowering way to engage players in exploring Atelier Ryza 2's synthesis system. I absolutely love the way upgrades are arranged on the board as well, making every upgrade feel as though they're easily obtainable, regardless of how you've spent your skill points. Apart from the new skill tree, synthesis in Atelier Ryza 2 is largely the same as its predecessor. Each recipe is still visually represented as a connected node system, similar to Final Fantasy X Sphere Grid, requiring a set of base ingredients to start. Selecting the proper ingredients for each connected node will allow you to work your way from one item attribute to the next, imbuing the item with better quality or unique properties. Much of what you can do during synthesis, however, is locked behind skill tree upgrades, so features such as Recipe Morph will be locked at the start of the game. For anyone uninterested in meticulously tinkering and improving their alchemical creations, you can always utilize the Auto Add Materials function to quickly make the things you need. I've always been curious just how well this function works in general, so I decided to utilize it a fair bit during my playthrough. Sure enough, it functions pretty well, though it's naturally no substitute to spending the time to learn how synthesis actually works. That said, I found myself utilizing Auto Add Materials more during my playthrough, not just out of sheer curiosity, but rather the anticipation of new and fresh mechanics. It's in this sense that my time with Atelier Ryza 2 synthesis feels all too familiar, though I can't really think of how GUST could improve upon this system without accidentally tampering with what makes it simple yet fun to play around with. For now, the brand new skill tree satisfies my need for something new, as it replaces the crafting experience grind with something that feels more fulfilling. While the previous game's narrative can simply be described as a coming-of-age tale, Atelier Ryza 2's story delves into the meaning of friendship and how it's affected by what surrounds us. Ryza's old friends haven't seen her for a good part of 3 years, and when we finally get the chance to do so, we quickly realize that they've all settled into a new lifestyle, with new goals, responsibilities, and, for some, hardships. Despite this, Ryza's cheery, hopeful demeanor lets her see her friends not as people defined by their current disposition, but as people who she shared adventures with in a lifelong past. And while in today's day and age, some might say that this perspective may seem callous, or even disrespectful of her friends' responsibilities, she chooses to see the light in them, extending her hand in aid whenever she's allowed to, with the hope of making a difference in their new lives. It's through Ryza that the Atelier series' wholesome and cheery attitude shines brightly, and despite a few portions of the game feeling like there may be something sinister looming about, Ryza cuts through all of that with the same smile and attitude that have made many fall in love with her from the start. It's to that end that compared to the previous game's laissez-faire attitude when it comes to character development, Incorporating these reunions into Atelier Ryza 2's main plot heightens these pivotal moments, teasing longtime fans who want nothing more than to have these reunions happen sooner rather than later. Add to that, a story that brings the game closer to a traditional RPG narrative, and you've got all of the elements that makes Atelier Ryza 2's story compelling and hard to put down. This slightly more focused storytelling will be appreciated by anyone who felt that the previous game's narrative meandered a bit, blending the discovery of the game's mysteries heavily into the game's plot and world design. For newcomers who may be curious about partaking in this grand adventure, I am happy to say that you can choose to play Atelier Ryza 2 if you so wish, as both games are only mildly connected. However, many of the game's reunions will carry more gravitas by experiencing the previous game, having gone on that journey with several of the game's characters. Conversely, not knowing who certain characters were prior to the events of Atelier Ryza 2 can have an interesting side effect, enticing curiosity in newcomers who might want to experience the start of the cast's friendships. Newcomers might also want to know that Atelier Ryza 2 does not feature an English voice track, which could be a deal breaker for some. Regardless of your association with the series, Atelier Ryza 2's storytelling is a remarkable improvement when compared to previous games in the franchise. While there are choice moments in the story that'll still have you exploring the city of Ashra-Ambard, the plot feels as though it advances at a good pace, with every bit of dialogue feeling succinct and respectful of the time you give it. And you'll be happy to know that despite encountering some ghastly information about the game's legends, Atelier Ryza 2 still manages to keep things lighthearted, fun, and optimistic, all of the hallmarks of what makes an Atelier story feel great. To invoke a sense of adventure, Atelier Ryza 2's landscapes can be explored in a variety of new ways. Not only will you be able to swing from one spot to the next with your new rope, but you'll also be able to travel across the map with your trusty mount, scale tall, vine-covered walls, and even dive into the watery depths in search of new materials and hidden treasure. These new exploration options create the illusion that Atelier Ryza 2's areas are larger and grander than ever, while providing enough gameplay variance that makes exploring its world feel more interesting. And along with a quality of life change that lets you quickly view what materials you're about to gather, it makes the simple act of gathering a lot less tedious. Apart from the vast landscapes you'll explore, Atelier Ryza 2 also features large ruins to investigate. It was a pleasant surprise to see multi-floor environments present in this game, and it reinforces its developers' ideas of introducing more traditional RPG elements in its gameplay. That said, I didn't find them to be overly large, and I always had the option to fast travel to and from Ryza's atelier should I require a break or need to empty my backpack. As you delve further and examine the various ruins scattered across the land, you'll be tasked with retrieving fragments of memories that can piece together to unlock key recipes and stories that tell the tale of a long-lost civilization. Completing story fragments will reward you with massive amounts of skill points that you can use to unlock recipes and upgrades in the Alchemy skill tree. Exploring the lands of Atelier Ryza 2 is quite pleasant, especially on the PS5, where the game runs at a smooth 60 frames per second. The only loading screen present in this version is a short initial loading screen that shows up after starting the game. When compared to the PS4 version running at 30 frames per second, the loading screens appear more frequently, though I should point out that this frequency is in line with the previous game. Aside from these, I found no discernible difference in visual and audio quality between both versions. Regardless of the platform you play the game on, Atelier Ryza 2 still manages to present a warm and inviting atmosphere thanks to its strong art direction. Rich and vibrant colors are used to accentuate details in characters' clothing, and a deliberate use of muted tones in the background allows its cast to pop from the environment. Layer all of that with an orally rich and diverse soundtrack that helps elevate the grandeur of Ryza's latest adventure, and you've got a game that's a feast for the senses. With its wholesome charm, cheery attitude, and grander ambitions, Atelier Ryza 2 couldn't have arrived at a better time, as it's simply the best game you could ever play to start off a brand new year. And even separated from that, it's also a fun and enjoyable adventure worthy of your time. For longtime fans, Atelier Ryza 2 is both a refinement and a realization of everything GUST wanted the original game to be. And for newcomers, Atelier Ryza 2 is the best introduction to the series, while still giving you the opportunity to learn more about Ryza's world by way of her previous adventure. Either way you make of it, Atelier Ryza 2 is a worthy sequel to the most successful Atelier game of all time, and you'd do well to experience this adventure yourself.